My in-laws attempted to move into my house without warning, but I told them I'm not legally married to your son, leaving them stunned. The first time I saw Michael, we were both there for extra credit at a college seminar, but our paths were very different. I was majoring in literature, he was in business, and I was immediately drawn to him when he raised his hand and posing a difficult question to the professor, and after class we ended up at the same coffee shop. From there, it seemed as though the universe had brought us together, and we talked about everything from our childhood memories to college hobbies. I come from a fairly strict background, he said. My parents are very religious, and I remember shrugging. So my Michael laughed. It sounds like we're from different planets. But despite our differences, there was an undeniable chemistry. We started seeing each other more often, studying together and exploring the city on the weekends. About 2 years into our relationship, we made the practical decision to move in together. Our parents are free thinkers, and they always taught me to question everything. At a dinner at his parents' house, Mrs. Davis, Michael's mother, was the first to express her concerns about living together before marriage. Michael, you know how we feel about that, shifted uneasily in his seat. Mom, apartments were far from the university and sharing a place made sense. Plus, we were inseparable by then. It's not a huge deal, Mr. Davis said, adding that you're living in sin in our home. I could feel the weight of their stares as they tried to diffuse the situation. I said, we respect your beliefs, but this is our decision. We're adults. But Mrs. Davis said, it's just not the way we raised you. Michael took my hand. Lizzie and I are in love, and we want to start a life together. I hope you can attest to the fact that that evening ended on a depressing note, but Michael and I remained steadfast in our choice. We moved into a comfortable apartment near campus, and as the days stretched into weeks and months, our relationship deepened, but the tension with his parents lingered like a melancholy tune on an antique radio. One evening, as we were getting used to our new life, there was a knock on the door. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, Michael cleared his throat and said, "This is all temporary, right? You'll get married soon." Mrs. Davis was holding a pie at the door. "I thought I'd come by and see how you two are doing," she said, looking around critically. "We're doing great, Mrs. Davis," I said, trying to be friendly. She sat down and put the pie on the table. Our once carefree dates and movie nights started to take a back seat to the impending expectation of marriage when Michael's parents' constant pressure began to weigh on us. One evening, as we were preparing dinner in our tiny kitchen, Michael brought up the topic. "Lizzie, have you ever thought about, having a wedding?" I looked up from chopping the vegetables and was shocked. "Are you proposing to us?" He nodded awkwardly, massaging the back of his neck. "I mean, sure. I want to marry you someday, but right now it's more about my parents. Perhaps if we had a ceremony, they would back off." I sigh. "So you're saying a wedding without the legal paperwork? We can invite friends and make it a fun day for my parents. Wedding, and we get some peace." It wasn't the romantic proposal I had envisioned, but I understood his reasoning. "Okay," I said slowly, "but with one condition. We do it our way. Without a large church wedding." Michael smiled with relief. The following few weeks were filled with hectic preparations. We selected a stunning outdoor location and invited our closest friends and family and organized a modest yet sincere ceremony. When we informed his parents, their response was surprisingly muted. Mrs. Davis raised an eyebrow and said, "Well, it's unconventional, but if it means you two are taking the next step, I suppose we can support it." Mr. Davis added that what matters is that you two are committed to one another. The wedding day was during the reception. Mrs. Davis pulled me aside, Lizzie, and said, "I want to apologize," in a gentle tone. "I know we've been hard on you too, but seeing you together today made me realize that love is what truly matters." It was sunny and bright, and I was wearing a simple white dress. Michael looked stunning in his suit, and our friends cheered, and even Michael's parents seemed genuinely happy. I smiled, touched by her words. It felt like we had finally won Michael's parents over, and I hoped that this would be a new beginning for us. However, as the days went by, their daily visits started dropping by unannounced, often with unsolicited advice or thinly veiled criticisms. "Thank you, Mrs. Davis. That means a lot." The day ended on a high note with everyone dancing and celebrating our love. One evening, as Michael and I were relaxing after a long day, there was a knock on the door. I opened it and saw Mrs. Davis holding a casserole dish. She said, "Just thought I'd drop off some dinner," with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thank you," I said, taking the dish. "But you know you don't have to do this." She waved a hand dismissively. "It's no trouble. Simply thinking that you might not have time to cook because you're always so busy." I forced a smile, sensing the underlying judgment we manage. "But thank you anyhow." As the door closed, I let out a deep sigh, and Michael put an arm around me and whispered, "It'll be okay." It began with the subtle remarks, the less than innocent inquiries such as, "Why is the house so messy?" or, "Have you considered cooking something more?" One day, after returning from work exhausted, I found Mrs. Davis in our living room rearranging our bookshelves. "What are you doing?" I asked, taking a backward look, and she looked up as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I thought, "I'd help clean up a little because these shelves look so cluttered," she said. "It's our home, Michael, and we didn't ask for help." Mrs. Davis pursed her lips and her eyes watered. "2 cups of tea. Mom's just helping out Lizzie," he said, trying to play mediator. I took a deep breath, my patience waning. After all, these family days have become more frequent, and they would drop by without warning, giving advice we never. Michael and I sat down for a heart-to-heart one evening after a particularly difficult visit from his parents. I started my speech shaking with frustration. This has to stop, because it was obvious that they no longer saw boundaries. I can't live like this, feeling like I'm constantly being judged in my own home. He ran his fingers through his hair. He appeared just as anxious. "I know, Lizzie, it's just that they're my parents," I said. "But what about our feelings and peace of mind? We can't keep sacrificing that for them." A week later, we invited them over for dinner, deciding to confront the matter head-on. The evening began amicably enough, and we spoke about coworkers and the most recent news, but when the main course was served, I took a deep breath and jumped right in. "Mrs. Davis, Mr. Davis, we invited you over because we need to talk about something." I started to speak steadily, and Mr. Davis looked up at his fork and paused in mid-sentence. "What's the matter?" I looked at Michael, who nodded encouragingly. "It's about the frequent visits as well." Mrs. Davis's eyes filled with tears as she said, "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us." Mr. Davis added, "We're just trying to help Michael take over Mom and Dad. We appreciate your concern, but it's getting to be too much. We need some space to live our lives, make mistakes, and grow together." The room fell silent, the tension evident. Mrs. Davis dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, her shoulders trembling. "We just wanted to be a part of your lives, Michael. It seems like Lizzie here doesn't appreciate family." I felt a pang of guilt, but I stood my ground. It's not about appreciation. It's about respecting our boundaries and our choices. The night ended with Mrs. Davis crying and Mr. Davis looking disappointed, and there was an unspoken agreement that things had to change as they left. I felt a mixture of relief and dread, wondering what the future held for our relationship. Days after the confrontation, the house felt divided, but he remained firm. Unusually quiet, the frequent visits had ceased, but the quiet was both a blessing and a curse. Every time the doorbell rang or someone knocked, my heart would race, thinking it was Michael's parents, but it was never them. One evening, as Michael and I sat on our couch, he brought up the subject. "Lizzie, do you think we were too harsh? After all, they are my parents, so perhaps we overreacted." As days turned into weeks, we started to feel the weight of our decision. There were no more unexpected visits, but there were also no calls or messages, so it seemed as though we had severed all ties. His hand felt warm. "Michael, it's not about being harsh, it's about setting boundaries. We did what we had to do," and he sighed deeply. "I know it's just hard." During this time, I frequently found comfort in looking through real estate listings online. One day, while I was scrolling through one of the lovely homes in a nearby town, I noticed that it had a large garden, a large living area, and, most importantly, it was far from our current situation. I called out to Michael to come look at this, and he joined me in looking at the screen. "Wow, it's gorgeous. But why were you looking at houses?" I was hesitant to say something like, "Maybe it's time for a fresh start somewhere new where we can create our memories away from all this drama." He looked surprised, so I nodded. "I know it's drastic, but maybe it's what we need," we said, carefully weighing the advantages and disadvantages of starting a new life. After much thought, I decided to use the money I had inherited from my grandmother to buy it. The day we signed the papers, I felt a mixture of emotions, including excitement for the new. The news was both alluring and frightening, but the more we spoke, the more it felt right. A few weeks later, we visited the house, which was even more beautiful in person, and the neighborhood seemed ideal. Michael said, "Lizzie, I think this was the best decision we ever made," as we were having a quiet dinner in our new dining room one evening. I grinned, feeling satisfied, and said, "I think this was the best decision we ever made." The move went smoothly, and soon we were settling into our new home. It felt like a dream, and the peace was exactly what we needed. Michael and I settled into a comfortable routine, enjoying the privacy and tranquility that our new surroundings provided. The past seemed like a distant memory, and the attention that once surrounded our lives had all but vanished. The mornings were quiet, filled with the chirping of birds, and the evenings brought a calm, tranquil energy. The months in our new home were like a dream. When the doorbell rang that fateful day while I was in the kitchen making dinner, Michael went to answer, and I heard whispers, and then I recognized the voice. It was Mrs. Davis. I walked to the entrance, my face showing my surprise, and there they were, Mrs. and Mr. Davis's suitcases in tow, standing at our doorstep. "Mom, Dad, what are you doing here?" Michael asked in a voice full of Mrs. Davis, grinned a little too sweetly, and we thought, "We missed you, sweetie, so why not come visit?" I tried not to panic, but Mr. Davis's comment caught me off guard. We wanted to see where our son was living now, and Michael seemed torn, but it would have been nice to have a heads up. Mrs. Davis looked around her eyes, scanning our house, and she said, "Oh, what a lovely place you have." They settled in and made themselves comfortable, just like they had in our previous house. One evening after dinner, I pulled Michael aside and said, "We can't go down this road again. We moved to escape this." He sighed. "I know, Lizzie, but they're my parents. This place was much nicer than the old one." I reacted angrily, but I said nothing. Mrs. Davis, who appeared to have overheard our conversation, came over with tears in her eyes and asked, "Is that how you feel, Michael? We're a burden." Michael looked helplessly at me before turning back to his mother. "Mom, it's not like that. We just wish you had told us you were coming," she sniffed. "We just wanted to be close to you, our son, but it appears that we're not welcome here either." I was saddened to learn that Michael's parents had decided to change their living arrangement. The two of us had been talking about it in private lately in the hopes of finding a tactful solution, but it appeared that the matter would soon be brought to light. "Lizzie, Michael," Mr. Davis started, "we have some news." My eyes widened in shock as Michael, already sensing what was about to happen, prompted Mrs. Davis to say, "We've sold our house, and we realize there's no need for it when we have such a lovely family home here with you two." Mr. Davis explained, looking earnest, and Mrs. Davis looked hurt. "We are family," he said. I took a deep breath and said, "This house is mine, not jointly owned by Michael and me. It's in my name only." I pulled a file from the study that showed them the ownership documents, and Mrs. Davis looked at them, obviously shocked. "But you're married, so what's yours is Michael's, and vice versa." I grinned. "You're not technically my in-laws because, although we had a wedding ceremony, Michael and I were never legally married, and never signed any official paperwork." The weight of what I said seems to linger in the air, and Mrs. Davis's face paled, her eyes widening in shock. Mr. Davis turned from me to Michael, searching for some kind of denial, and Michael took my hand, expressing his support. "It's true, Mom and Dad. We thought you'd be more understanding if we had a ceremony, but we never felt the need to involve the state in our relationship." Mrs. Davis started crying. "So you lied to us, and now you're throwing us out." The room was tense after the bombshells were dropped, and Michael's parents were shocked, but it wasn't long before Michael sighed. "It wasn't about tricking anyone. It was about the way we wanted to live our lives. The ceremony was for us and those who wanted to celebrate our love. The shock turned into our rage. So you tricked everyone with a sham wedding, and you think that makes everything all right?" Mrs. Davis's voice had a hint of venom. "I've had enough of Mr. Davis declaring, 'You, young lady, are nothing but a sinner and a witch trying to pull my son away from his family and his values.'" I was shocked by the ferocity of their response, but I refused to let them scare me. "I haven't taken Michael away from anyone he's made." Michael, the calm person in the storm, said, "Mom, Dad, I love you both, but my place is here with her. She has been nothing but kind and understanding, even when you both haven't." Mrs. Davis's eyes were full of tears, but her voice was firm. "Come home with us, Michael. She's only pulled you into her web of deceit." Mrs. Davis's face was a mask of hurt and betrayal, and she said it coldly, "But keep in mind that you're turning your back on us." Mr. Davis's voice was a mix of anger and disbelief. "I'm choosing to live my life on my terms," Michael said. The room fell silent for what seemed like an eternity, and every breath felt heavy. Michael said, "I just wish you'd see that." Mrs. Davis's eyes were hard, her voice bitter. "Let's go." She said this to her husband without giving either of us another look, and they left behind a wake of hurt, confusion, and uncertainty. I looked at Michael's face, which was a mirror of my feelings, and we both knew that things were wrong. Few days after the altercation, I was returning home from work when my neighbor, Mrs. Carlson, who was an elderly woman famous for her daily walks and her extraordinary ability to know everyone's business, called out to me. "Have you heard about the Davis family not selling their house?" she asked with a knowing look. I stopped, taking a moment to think. I heard from Susan, who heard from Janice, who works at the town's real estate office, that there is no record of the Davis property being up for sale. I felt a knot form in my stomach, wondering if they were lying to us all. When I got home, I told Michael about it, and he looked at me. "Back? What do you mean?" she said. leaning closer and lowering her voice. The realization was a difficult pill to swallow because, despite our best efforts to understand and make accommodations for them, they had been playing a game. Michael sighed deeply and rubbed his temples. I'm shocked that they would lie to us. What were they trying to accomplish? We both knew the answer. We have arguments, but outright dishonesty is something else entirely. We can't keep allowing them to drag us into their manipulative games. I said unequivocally, we need strong boundaries. Michael nodded. You're right. We can't continue like this. It's unhealthy for us and our relationship. The following day, he went to his parents' house and had to confront them to get some answers. When he returned, his face was a mixture of sadness and rage, and they acknowledged it. He started speaking heavily, saying that they felt threatened by our independence and that if they moved in with us, we would once again be a proper family. We sat down to discuss our next course of action, and it became evident that we needed time away from them for our sanity and the well-being of our relationship. Michael declared, taking a break from all of this drama and manipulation, I decided that this was the best course of action for us at this time. That evening, we informed his parents of our decision. Their response was full of accusations and rage, but we remained firm that we needed this for ourselves and our future. The following few weeks were quiet as we concentrated on each other, and rebuilding the journey had been long and full of obstacles, but it was a moving reminder of the value of boundaries, honesty, and respect for one another. One evening, as we sat on our porch gazing at the stars, Michael turned to me and whispered, "Thank you for standing by me and fighting for us." I smiled and squeezed his hand constantly. Any partnership, as the evening became darker, we turned our attention to the future in the hopes of harmony and comprehension